Hello, this is Mrs. Bame. I am going to cook for you today in the kitchen. I'm sorry we're not in the classroom, but this is the best I can do today, but it's kind of fun, something different. I think the camera work's going to be a little rough because I don't have a place to set the camera when I cook, so it's going to be one-handed cooking. But I'm going to make snickerdoodles today, and your lesson that you have this week, which is your choice if you'd like to do, is you actually have your choice of one of two things. You can make a cookie. You don't have to be. It doesn't have to be snickerdoodles, or you could make a cookie that we've made in class. While I talk to you, I'm going to wash my hands. Or you can make a cookie that you would like, that maybe you've made before, that your family likes, or maybe you saw online and that you have wanted to try. So whatever cookie you would like to do is cool. But we'll use the same techniques that I'm gonna use today that you've seen before. So this week and next week are gonna just be reteaches. So I'm doing a different cookie, but kind of the same type lessons that we've done in the past. I already preheated my oven, and my oven is, it says 350, but I have it on convection, so depending on what your oven, how your oven sets, mine says 350 because that convection is the fan turning in the oven, and that makes that hot air go around. It actually makes it more efficient to bake, and that's typically what we use in most of the kitchens because we have that. If you're in kitchen too, we didn't have one there. Actually, my little setup here is not too bad. Let me move that. So anyway, we're gonna make snickerdoodles, and I bet you a lot of you have had these before. I don't actually make them very often. My mom makes them all the time. She almost always has them at her house when we go to visit. So it's kind of like, you know, grandma's treat. But I definitely have made them before, and we've made them in class before, and they're yummy. So the one thing about this recipe, I would say the one ingredient that you might not have that might prevent you from making this is you need the ingredient called cream of tartar. I know that's actually backwards for you, but that is going to help our cookies rise. And before I started, I looked on the bottom, and actually somewhere around here, I have my other can, or my other little bottle, and it had an expiration of, I don't know, it already expired. But it wouldn't have made me sick or anything like that. But the expiration means that it's not going to be quite as efficient for the helping it to rise as the leavening agent. So I made sure I went and bought a one up to date. But I am not going to the grocery store right now. I am trying my best not to go at all, which is really different for me. But I did like stock up when I went. I'm gonna see how long I can go without having to go back to the grocery store. I think we're pretty good here. Hopefully you guys are all good at home. So this cookie is gonna be rolled just like we did with our lemon whippersnappers and our ginger snaps too. We also rolled those. But I tried to find some glass bowls so you could see. And for the rolling, I'm gonna use 1/4 of a cup of sugar. Sorry, I'm just gonna do it right over there. And then to that, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. And if you have a container like this and your spoon will fit through that large hole, go for it, because that's always nice. You can level it off in there. Mine's not gonna fit, so I'm gonna take mine off. Also, sometimes there's that little, plastic thing with the holes for sprinkling. Don't ever try to sprinkle it into your measuring spoon. You want to make sure that you take that plastic piece off and then pour or dip in there. So mine will dip when I took that top part off, and I'm just gonna hold my flat edge. I'm not using a knife today. This is a spatula, straight edge spatula that I use almost every day. It's one of my favorite tools in my kitchen. I've had it forever. I've had it since I've been in college, actually. I got it at a garage sale, and I think I use it every day. My kids will tell you if I can't find it, I panic. I'm like, where is that? Because it is one of my favorites. I just can slice bread, slice fruit, spread stuff on it. So usually in the morning, that's one of my go-to tools. All right, so there's my cinnamon and sugar, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and stir that up, but then set that aside for later. And never is the ratio typically with a cinnamon sugar half and half. It's almost cinnamon, well, if you don't measure that correctly, it can make it really bitter. So you want to definitely follow the recipe. You can buy cinnamon sugar, like with a little container like I showed you with the cream of tartar, but I feel like that's just silly. It's so much easier to make yourself, and why have one more thing in the kitchen that you don't need. Okay, so that's gonna set aside. And then I'm gonna go ahead and start with my dry ingredients. So my first one is gonna be flour. And this is my container. I'm so excited to get to show you my containers that I love, because ours are really narrow in class and it's hard to scrape back in. But I love this because it's nice and wide, and then I can stack them in my pantry. They're Tupperware. I think I've had these forever. I don't even remember when I got these. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I stirred it first, because that's what we always do with our flour. And then I'm gonna scoop it, level it off. But just for fun, I have my kitchen scale here today, and this recipe calls for either 2.5 cups of flour or 12.5 ounces of flour. So I'm gonna measure 2.5, and I'm gonna see how close it is to 12.5 ounces, because I'm gonna guess that it's not gonna be exactly correct. And if you remember, actually weighing it is gonna be more accurate than using the cups, because there's a lot more room for error with this, and not with the scale. So what I did is let me move my camera, show you. I put my, where is it? Wait, let me flip it, sorry. Here's where my computer skills are. Oh, I don't even know how to flip it. Anyway, there's my scale, and I have it. I put it on the bowl in there first by itself, and I'm gonna press 0. Oh my gosh, how do I flip this? Anyway, and now it's 0. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my 2.5 cups of flour in there. There's 1. Let's give it a quick stir again. And there's 2. And then the last one is 1/2 cup. And since I'm digging deeper in there, I'm gonna give it another stir, scoop, and then sweep. You could also just use a large spoon and spoon it into your cup. That's also a good way to measure. And that came to 11.5 ounces. So a little 1 ounce more than the recipe calls for. And just since I know baking measuring is more accurate, I'm just gonna, oh wait, no, I totally lied. It was 1 ounce short, which should have been 12.5, and I had 11.5. So I'm just gonna throw a little bit more flour in there until it gets to 12.5. There it goes. Oops. Nope, now I went over. Okay, so there's 12.5. And now I'm gonna add my other 2 dry ingredients. Or other 3, I should say. So I have the cream of tartar, which we already talked about. This is actually acid. So this is what's in baking powder. This plus baking soda is what makes baking powder. I should Google before I look to see if you could just substitute. I don't think for this recipe, you can just straight up substitute this, because what I'm guessing is that this recipe has more acid than baking powder does, only because when I taste the snickerdoodle, I kind of have a little lemony flavor, which to me is acid. And so I believe there's probably a little more of this, but there's probably a substitution you can do if you don't have the cream of tartar. You'll have to look that up. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and add 2 teaspoons of our cream of tartar. Sorry, you can't see it, but trust me here. And then I'm gonna turn the camera so you can see the food. Oh. And then to that, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm sorry, baking soda. Totally different. but basically I've made baking powder using the cream of tartar and the soda. And then the last dry ingredient I'm gonna put in here is salt. So I'm using a fine salt, not a kosher salt or anything that's heavy or thick, because in baking, I want it to kind of melt into the cookie. I don't want big chunks inside the cookie. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a half a teaspoon of salt. And again, I'm gonna use this just to level that off. And then I'm gonna whisk these ingredients together. And I'm gonna set that aside. All right, let me move my ingredients. Usually I pick up as I go, but I don't think you guys wanna watch me clean up, so I'm gonna pass on that until I'm done. All right, and now we're gonna do our wet ingredients. So let me move this down a little bit. We're gonna start with our fats, like we usually do. And we're gonna put in a half a cup of shortening. So I already cut. I like to buy it by the stick. I think it's just easier to measure because I can use those little measurements on the side. But you can buy it in a tub too. If you buy it in a tub and you want to measure half of a cup, what I suggest is put a piece of saran wrap in your measuring cup and then press that shortening in there, and then you can just pop out the saran wrap and put it in your mixer, because if you don't, it's hard to get it all out and it's really difficult to wash. So I think that little saran wrap trick works great. Okay, so there's half a cup of that, and then I put the butter's been out for 2 hours, but I actually have a function on my microwave or convection oven. It says, and you can look for that if you want to make this and you have it put this out for 2 hours. It's a soften melt, and you can pick butter and soften it and how many sticks you're putting in, and that's really helpful. So if you have that tool on your appliance, use it. I use mine a lot. But if not, 2 hours, or you could just put that stick in the wrapper, as long as it's paper, like parchment paper, and put it in there and put it in for like 5-7 seconds, stop it, turn it, 5 seconds. And you're gonna, each time, like between those 5 seconds, you're gonna squeeze it. And once you get a little squeeze, then I would stop. It's probably still not quite soft enough, but you can let it mix a little bit longer in your mixer and it should be fine. Okay, so we have our shortening and our butter. And I do have to read directions, everybody does. And I did number 1. Oh, I didn't show you, but I turned on the oven and I lined my cookie sheets with parchment paper. If you have silicone match, you could do that. If you don't have either, then just use spray or shortening, and that'll work fine too. But you need something so it's gonna release from the pan. If you don't put anything down, it's gonna stick. Okay, so we did that, and then we did our sugar, cinnamon, we did our dry ingredients, and now I'm on number 4. So we're using our mixer. We're gonna beat the butter and the shortening, and the 1.5 cups of sugar. And I know you know what that is, what that means when you add your fat and your sugar. You better know what that means. It means that you're gonna cream it. So we're gonna go ahead and put this. We don't care if we stir, but I still love this container, again, because it's nice and wide mouth. And I'm gonna put my 1 and a half. And I'm gonna use my beater and go ahead and get that started. And that is creaming, right? So we're not looking for actual cream or anything like that. I'm thinking I'm using the mixer at school when I have to lock it. This one's a little different, although I kind of like the one at school better. I don't really love this pull down, pull up. I don't feel like I have a lot of space here to dump stuff in. If I were to buy another one, I would probably get one closer to like what we had in our kitchens at school, that tilt back and tilt, because I feel like you can stop it and put your ingredients in there a lot easier. Okay, while that's running, I'm gonna stop it once. And I don't have my glass bowl with me, so you guys are just gonna have to believe me, although maybe I'll move the camera to show you, but it's not there yet. I'm gonna go ahead and, as this night becomes light and fluffy, I'm gonna crack my eggs. So I have my 2 eggs in here. And I'm gonna crack them one at a time. See, I still do that even when I'm at home, just in case I get a shell in there or maybe it was bad. And since I am waiting, I'm just gonna use the second bowl to do the second egg. Oh yeah, there it is. I was like, oh, I don't see the eggs on the recipe book. Okay. And now I'm gonna scrape down one more time. And gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. There's a flip thing, but I don't see it on my screen somewhere. I'm afraid I'm gonna turn off the camera. So wait, maybe it's this one. I don't even know what that means. Okay, anyway, sorry, you know how I am with technology. This is like a struggle. I'd much rather be in a class doing it like that with all of you helping me. No picking sticks today, sorry. But hey, maybe if one of you guys knows, I have to do it all on Google, all the lessons, but I would love to do more of a live. That would be fun, like a live demonstration. And I don't know how to do that. My daughters know how to do it on Instagram, but I really have to do it through Google for our classrooms because not everybody has Instagram. And anyway, so if you happen to know how to do it, I can do a video where it was like a live stream where you could comment, ask questions. I would love that. Or maybe I'll figure it out on my own for the next time I do this. Okay, so tilt this in. Only problem is see. Pretty soft, fluffy. And just like the techniques we've used before, it's going to get this light in there and fluffy. Usually if I wasn't talking to you, I would just stop and I'd go this would go and I would go wash my dishes. And so then when I got to the end, everything's clean, put away. This is light and fluffy, and then I go to the next step. Okay, so I'm going to stop it. And I'm going to add those dry ingredients. Oh, and I forgot to talk about in the beginning, before I even started the camera, I had all my ingredients out. I made sure I had all my equipment out and that I had everything. Like the cream of tartar had been an easy thing for me to overlook. And like, oh, darn it, I don't have that ingredient. So I got everything ready, which you should do too before you bake. And that's called mise en place, which we haven't talked about. That was going to be our definition this week. But it basically means everything in its place, because you don't want to get halfway through your recipe and realize, oh my gosh, I need that and I don't have it, and you can't come up with a substitution, and now you kind of wasted what you've been doing. So it's always better when you bake to do mise en place, which is a fancy term, which means just make sure you're organized and ready and have everything. So notice I barely mixed in those dry ingredients. I'm going to take my beater off, and I'm just going to hand stir the remainder of this in here. This actually was given to me by my TA a while ago. I think it says 2017, and her sister is my TA now in third period, Chloe Yee, but she's not, I don't think she'll see this video. But it was from her sister when she was my TA, and I love it. I use it all the time. And here's another tool that I love. I use it all the time. It's just I like it, it's smaller and it's bendable. It's made of silicone, and I just, especially getting in between the little places, like with this beater, I love that. Probably use that every day too. Okay, so then I'm gonna go ahead and just, let me make sure I'm reading my directions. Beat in eggs one at a time, about 30 seconds. I didn't do it one at a time, but you can do that one at a time. Reduce lead to slow. Then we gave it 30 more seconds, and we just did our flour in there. And we know it's good that we got to do yeast spreads before we left, because we now know like how gluten works, and that we don't want to overmix this, or that we'll have really tough cookies like our pizza. I mean, pizza's good, but that's the only thing you want tough, not your cookies. So now I have all my dough. And I'm gonna grab one of my cookie sheets that I have lined. Now, since I'm home and I have it, I'm gonna use it. But just like we did with our ginger snaps, you don't need to have any of these fancy gadgets. You could just use a spoon. And the trick to that is make one, decide the size you wanna make it, and then try to match that size with the rest of your cookie dough. So this recipe says make it the size of a rubber or bouncy ball. So I'm gonna use the smaller one. Although I could use the bigger one, it would be fine. I would just have less cookies, so. But this is a little easier for portion control. So I have that. I just swoosh it across the side to kind of flatten it. I'm gonna pop it into my hand. I'm gonna roll it right here in the palm. Okay, I'm not pressing down too hard. And I'm just very gentle to make that little dough ball. And then I'm gonna toss it in my cinnamon sugar. And then I'm gonna put that on my cookie sheet. And that, I'm gonna keep going. I should have 2 cookie sheets full, but yours could be different because maybe yours are smaller or bigger. If you have to go to a 3rd sheet, go for it. If you have it on one, you probably have them too close together. So I would probably space them out. But just work with whatever you have. Honestly, to bake, you really only need a bowl and a spoon, and you could probably figure everything else out and kind of wing it. It doesn't always turn out exactly like the recipe says when you don't have all the proper stuff, but it's still yummy. You're not gonna go wrong with all of these ingredients. I wish I could share these with you. My family's probably finally happy that they get a sample. I'm gonna pause this. I'm gonna finish putting them on the cookie sheet, and then I'll turn back on. All right, I have 1 cookie sheet done. And so while I roll the other one, I'm gonna let this bake on the middle rack. I need one more. So there they go. I'm gonna leave about an inch space around the cookie sheet so the air can circulate. And then again, that's the middle of the oven, not necessarily the middle rack. And that's the most even cooking, even heat. And then I'm gonna set the timer for, it says 10 minutes, but I'm gonna do 9 minutes just to make sure that I don't overcook them. And then, like I said, I'm gonna finish rolling that second cookie sheet and maybe wash some dishes. The timer just went off, and what I'm looking for is them to be just golden brown on the edges. They can look a little bit doughy on the inside. They're gonna sit on the cookie sheet and get that residual heat for about 10 minutes. So it's okay if they're a little underdone. You actually want them to be a little underdone. And now I'll make them chewy. My dog, Louie, he thinks he's tough. I think I need 2 hands. All right, this is the last batch coming out of the oven. I actually had to go to 3 cookie sheets, and it made 45 cookies. So there they all are. See, that's way better than class because we'd only get half that amount. We wouldn't have time to bake all of those. So there are some pluses to doing this at home. But you may have a different number. It depends on how big you make yours. And notice that the kitchen is clean. Your parents are only gonna let you cook if you always clean up at the end. So super important. So if you choose to make the snickerdoodles or a different cookie this week, make sure you go to Google Classroom still, and I'd love for you to post a picture with you and what you make. And also the recipe, if you use a different one, you can just copy and paste ours if you use something from our class. Or even from the internet, you can copy and paste. You have to start it in Google Docs, and then you can upload it to the Google form I put on there. And then if you don't have the ingredients to bake, I totally understand. You may just watch the chocolate chip cookie video that I put up there, and there's some questions that go along with it. So that would also be something you could do this week. And you can bake more than what I'm suggesting. You can do what you want. Remember, I'm not going to grade you this week. It's all just reteach. So we've made cookies before, and we know all the creamy method, dry, wet, how to put them in the oven, what to look for when they're done, things like that. So we're just kind of redoing that, and it'll be good for you to do them at home. So also I put stuff on the For the cookbook, I sent you a School Loop email, so make sure you read that, and it should explain everything. But please feel free to School Loop me if you have any questions, and hopefully I'll see you soon.